So the topic for this one is SEO pricing, specifically organic SEO pricing. So how much do you charge if you're an SEO agency, or if you're looking from a client or customer's perspective to outsource your SEO, or if you're a small business owner and you're looking to hire an SEO company, how is SEO pricing put together? What do SEOs or search engine optimization consultants charge? What do SEO companies charge? So we're going to look at this from both ends of the spectrum, whether you're a small business owner or business owner, company owner, and you're looking to hire SEO, or whether you are an SEO agency or SEO consultant. So we're going to do a deep dive into SEO pricing and the different types and methods of charging for SEO. So do you charge per keyword? Do you charge for just an overall campaign? Do you charge more for month one and then it goes on to more of a retainer? What do you get for your retainer? What is your SEO company doing? Now, the first thing I'll say is that SEO should be seen as an investment, not a cost. Now, all investments, all successful investments, should I say, should get a return on investment, ROI. We always tell prospects that if they cannot invest in their business, then neither can we. We're looking for clients with a particular mindset, one with growth and scaling up in mind. If it sounds like your business could be a good fit for our services, then get in touch. And that's what we usually say at Internet Marketing Platinum to prospects or existing clients who maybe purchased a web design from us and now looking at SEO. Then we always say that yes, it is a long-term investment, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some quick wins and take advantage of some low-hanging fruit. But it's all about managing expectations and saying, look, if you're a new startup business and you're not known in the industry and nobody knows about your business, and you've maybe starting with an handful of clients, so you've got no clients, then you can't expect to have SEO success overnight. If that was the case, then anybody can just pop up and beat an established business. So you've got to be realistic, and you've got to have a plan. I always say that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You've always got to have a plan and execute the plan. You've got to have a SEO strategy, and that should form part of a wider digital marketing strategy. So one of the number one reasons why business SEO fails is that we don't get sign off on content that we send, or the business owner just gets too busy with other things, or there's multiple reasons why SEO fails, and the number one reason is probably managing expectations. So it's really important to just make sure that you're realistic. So business SEO falls into a few different categories. Generally, there's local SEO, regional SEO, and global SEO. Regional SEO, could call that national SEO, and global, that might be known as international SEO. Local SEO is usually going to be a lot less competitive and therefore less expensive to implement a SEO strategy than, say, global or international SEO. It just makes sense because you're going to have fewer people in that target audience. You're going to have fewer competitors for those keywords. So it's very much a different animal, local SEO versus national versus international. So basically, we always say that your efforts, or the amount of effort that you need in terms of SEO, will be based on the strength of competition, and there's various metrics that we use to establish how strong or weak the competition are. SEO pricing is usually done based on project, based on a project. Now, a project does have a start to finish, and the thing is, SEO should really be long term. So what we're looking at is project-based SEO, and then that will become embedded into the organization, and then become business as usual. And what we always hope um, most of the time is that a client will come on board. It becomes a business partnership. We can do things like either completely outsource the SEO, so the client outsources the SEO in its entirety to us, Internet Marketing Platinum, or maybe it's a bit of an hybrid where some of it is outsourced and some of it we train on, and it's very much multifaceted as well. So include social media management. We'll include other aspects of building an online presence. Really, now there are other types of SEO pricing, other ways of pricing for SEO. They include per keyword, per hour, results based, like monthly retainer, or a combination of all those things. Now, what we don't tend to do is results based, and it all comes back to the fact that if we can establish quite early on in the relationship the very high level and reasons why a particular strategy would work, and really just outline that in initial discovery and competitor research and overall research to a client, then it'll be pretty laid out in front of them what's going to happen, and we can have a really robust plan in place. For example, we'll do gap analysis for the client, and we'll say, look, you've already got lots of content, but it's not converting very well. Therefore, we need things like CRO with that. So we're talking about conversion rate optimization. So that's one of the strategies. And then another one will be, well, all your competition have got kind of between 40 and 100 reviews, and you've only got 5 reviews on Google. Then we should really build a process, build it into your existing process to get more customer reviews. And we'll have clear actions, clear defined, measurable actions based on smart objectives. And remember that an objective has got to be measurable, or it's not an objective. So I think the thing in the SEO industry is that there's kind of very few industry standards. Obviously, big players like Moz and SEMrush and Ahrefs have all established some standards in our industry, and obviously we've got very robust process models which we can follow in terms of SEO. But I think the thing is that there's no regulation in the industry, so you do tend to get some rogues in SEO, and that's a real problem. So you've really got to be careful, and I think the best way of avoiding the rogues is just I'm talking from, if you're a small business decision maker, small business owner, the best way of establishing whether your chosen SEO agency or SEO consultant or SEO person is a rogue is to just work with them very closely and ask for transparency on that. And I think that's really, really important. And there's got to be a transparency, there's got to be accountability in our industry, and it is really a big pain point, really, that there are some rogues out there who are out to just rip people off. So there should be no smoke and mirrors in the SEO industry, and it's one of my company's aims in business to really dispel many of the myths that are prevalent in our field of expertise. I mean, SEO doesn't have to be really perplexing. It is quite straightforward, really, and what we do is on the very kind of most overarching level, we basically fix any technical issues. We build content, and then we outreach for links, really fundamentally. And the thing is, if we've got an established website, if a client's got an established website and they engage with us for SEO and they've got a couple of hundred pages, and all the competition, with all other things considered equal, have got 500 to 1,000 pages, then obviously we need to build more content, but we've also got to look at the quality of the existing competitions pages as well. So it's kind of not as clear cut as just building as many pages as your competition. The competition on average might only have 100 good pages, and the other 900 out of the 1,000 are getting no traffic. So what's the point in kind of mimicking that inefficiency? So it's all about working smarter, not working harder as well. So let's go on to a bit more about pricing. Before that, we'll just talk about kind of how you put together the typical SEO quote and what that's made up of. So I think, and this is more for if you are maybe a startup SEO consultant, you're not sure how to price, but you are really good at what you do. When explaining SEO to a new client, my advice would be to give analogies, and really, getting kind of the point across about what SEO is and how it works. Really, one of the best analogies I heard this a few years ago, was it's very much like baking a cake. So you have to mix the right ingredients together in the precise quantities for that confectionery to taste delicious, and you can create a reasonable cake for a moderate budget. But if you have the finest ingredients, such as the best Belgian chocolate, then your cake is likely to be, very, very much top of the range. In turn, if you put more, the more you put into SEO, such as paying for better quality content, maybe you're outsourcing content to a copywriter, maybe you want to put ultimate guides together to educate your audience. The better your content, generally, the higher your rankings will be, because your website will eventually be considered the place to go for that information, a bit like the Wikipedia of your industry. So yeah, it's very, very much, I like that analogy. I like the cake baking analogy. You've got to have the right quantities and the right quality of ingredients in there. But yeah, SEO is very much content driven. What I always say is, when looking at a job, so a potential SEO project that an existing client or a prospect might be discussing with us, then I'll say, look, if I have many clients coming and they've just got 5 websites and they want us to SEO those 5 pages, and I say, well, okay, that's a start, so we can do technical SEO on those 5 pages, but you still need to build content. So if phase 1 is technical SEO, phase 2 is sprucing up or amending your existing content and building more content, and then phase 3 is very much ensuring links are coming in to that content, so eyes are getting on that content. So if the prospect is adamant that they only ever want to have 5 pages, they don't want to build any more pages, then we always say, well, look, there's no point. Let's stop right here, unless we can kind of change the hearts and minds of those clients. Then we need to make sure that the clients have the right mindset to make SEO work. And that brings me on to the point that SEO is not for everybody. Not everybody can rank highly on Google, because there's only so many spots. It is an hierarchy of positions, and not every business owner or freelancer or anybody running some type of business is gonna get it. Is gonna be able to take the website to the next level necessarily. So we are looking for those clients who do have the mindset of growth in mind. So let's look at some of the factors that we would consider whilst coming up with the typical SEO quote. So what is the typical SEO quote made of? So your website's current size and the size it needs to become in order to rank well. This is a key point. So baseline of where the website's current size, how many pages, the quality of content. We do a content gap analysis or content audit. Obviously, some of the aspects of SEO are pretty straightforward, pretty binary, even where you've got have you got title tags, have you got meta descriptions, have you got H1s, H2s, have you got the hierarchy there, have you considering all the different aspects of technical SEO? But then content is very much, I believe, a thing which is content marketing, a content marketing strategy. Almost needs, it does have its own category, really. So it's beyond copywriting, it's beyond video content production, it's beyond just creating nice imagery and infographics, and other aspects of audio visual. It is its own part of digital marketing, but it very much sits within SEO, and it's very much vital for SEO. So most websites with fewer pages will not rank particularly well in search engines. So 5-page websites, unless the competition is really quite thin on the ground, will not really rank really well in search engines, unless there's a lot of really real world influence from the founders of the website. So maybe somebody who's already established a few really high-end websites creates another, some entrepreneur creates another website. They're gonna have the personal brand, the past successes, all to put into that. They're gonna have the real world relationships, or will link into that brand, if it's applicable. So there's usually a positive correlation between good search engine rankings and number of quality pages which contain quality content, which is really important. E-commerce websites tend to have a lot of pages, for instance, so they generally will have to charge more for, and they'll require a greater SEO effort as opposed to a small local service industry based business. So yeah, you can have local e-commerce sites, but a lot of them tend to be more national or international, global. So expect to pay more for SEO if you have fewer pages, or if you have a site which it's got more competition, or it's got maybe a larger target audience, and you need to serve each aspect of that target audience. Or if you have lots of pages that need lots of SEO work, so you might have 500 pages, but you might only be getting traffic to a few, and the technical SEO needs doing across the board. And so just because you've got lots of pages, we're looking at the quality, not just the quantity. How established the businesses will also determine SEO efforts. For instance, it stands to reason that if your business is well established, large businesses tend to naturally have inbound links pointing in, backlinks from other businesses, which are a good vote of confidence for Google to say, look, this is the place to send the traffic. And obviously, if you've already got lots of good content on there and you're serving the customers' needs and wants, so if you're answering questions on your website, and people will stay on longer, people will refer people, word of mouth, be very organic in terms of growth, so that cumulative or compound effect will take effect. The more engaging and usable and accessible your website is. So let's say you're a large business, you've got articles published about you in industry publications and national press. It may just be a case of contacting those vendors and making sure there's a link coming back as well to that relevant content. Maybe the industry publications haven't linked to the correct page, or maybe they've not linked at all, and we can work with those to ensure that you do get the link that you need. So there are some quick wins to be had and some low-hanging fruit, and you tend to find that, especially in terms of when you're in A/B testing, multivariate testing, on sites as well, you're deciding which content should be in which place and which content should be on there in the first place. It's really important to ensure that we do use things like heat mapping and click tracking and ways of ensuring that content is optimal and optimally placed for your target audience. So yeah, big businesses can certainly as have much less of a challenge to in terms of the fact that they can leverage existing relationships, and it wasn't always the case. I mean, it used to kind of be a more level playing field for smaller businesses against bigger businesses. Now that's 10 years ago, for example, in terms of SEO, smaller businesses, um, if they had somebody who really knew SEO, they could really rank higher than bigger businesses. But these days, bigger businesses will outrank smaller businesses. Um, so that is just the fact, and that's how it should, in many instances, be. Obviously, it depends on the business. Sometimes the big businesses can serve the customer better. Sometimes a small business. So and that's where, as a small business owner, you need to find gaps in the market, niches where you can, um, come in there and really, serve a very specific audience, and that's how you can beat larger websites. Look at Amazon, for example. There's something called the Amazon effect, where pretty much any page they put up there will rank quite highly um, just because it's Amazon and they've got authority, they've built authority. Um, so yeah, really, really, really important to just consider how that works. So you've got you may have heard of the acronym EAT, so EAT. In SEO, this stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This concept is pretty much discussed in great detail in Google's quality raters guidelines. Demonstrating good EAT, both on off your website, could potentially help improve Google rankings. It's very important for most sites, in my opinion, really. So you've got, and that's something that you can learn from, the big players like Amazon, how becoming an authority, or becoming, as I alluded to earlier, the Wikipedia in your industry, and representing that adequately in your web presence is really, really important. So yeah, that's kind of covering your website's current size and the size it needs to be to rank well. Kind of like planning a journey with a roadmap. Where are we now? Where do we need to get to? And that's just a basic SEO strategy or SEO plan. So next is business goals. What would you like to achieve from the website? And remember, this is what we need to do to price an SEO job. So seems a lot, they're really long-winded, but we really need to know if we can work with this client. We don't take SEO lightly. So business goals, what would you like to achieve from your website? This is a key part of the SEO questionnaire that we send out to a client. We want to find out visions, values, business goals, average value of a customer, average lifetime value of a customer, cost per acquisition of a customer. We really look at these things. Um, and the thing is, what we're trying to avoid, the types of business owners we're trying to avoid, are those who are going to reach capacity and then not have systems in processes in place to grow. So it's very frustrating as an SEO consultant to work with a client who cancels once we've got them working because they've got too much work. Very, very frustrating. So we're always looking for businesses who have got growth in mind, who want to take their products and or services to as many people as possible and take market share. We don't tend to like to work with clients who just want to kind of create another job for themselves. So if the personal website is to be an ancillary marketing tool to support your brick and mortar shop, and there's plenty of footfall which already comes into your business, then perhaps your website isn't your top concern. And that's the thing. If, however, you rely on your website to generate targeted traffic and sales, then your website is all the more important to your business. For example, if it's your only source of inquiries and sales, besides your word of mouth and maybe some trade shows that you do and some networking, then it might be a really high concern. And really, that's the kind of customers we're looking at working with. And having said that, I mean, SEO is certainly not a silver bullet. I would not just do organic SEO as part of a digital marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, with finite budgets, and you want to spend that budget, get a return on investment with it, spend it in the right areas where you're getting the maximum return on investment. Organic SEO has certainly been proven over time to be one of the most cost-effective forms of digital marketing. If it's the case that your website is part of the key to your success in terms of business growth, more profitability, higher revenue, then the amount of SEO effort that we're going to put into it it could build your business. So if you're a startup business and you don't have any traffic to your website, and basically you're asking us to provide SEO, then it's becoming a business partnership because we're basically building your revenue. So really, I would have a multi-channel approach to marketing for a start, to digital marketing, and I wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket with organic SEO. Organic SEO certainly is very powerful. Inbound marketing powerful. Content marketing is very powerful. But at the end of the day, Google and other search engines such as Yahoo and Bing are third parties, and you can't just rely on that. So you have got to have a backup plan as well. So yeah, results-driven websites tend to need more SEO resource than websites which just exist to be ancillary marketing tools and kind of, when they just exist to be another string to your bow. I often hear about business owners just getting all the web, getting all the traffic through Facebook, and then the website's there just to show the number. Well, at the end of the day, if somebody types in accountants in Barnsley, for example, or accountants Wakefield or whatever, and you don't come up, your phone number won't show anyway. So they'll have to know your name, they'll have to know your brand. Have you built a brand? So that's the thing. So next is the strength of the competition. We need to know the strength of the competition in order to know how much to price for SEO, how much market share have you already got. And so yeah, strength of competition is determined by your niche, by your industry, your sector, and the locations that you operate in. So again, it comes back to that first question: local, national, international. Where's your target market? You've got to come up with, or we've got to help you to come up with ideal customer personas, avatars. If you wish to sell products and or services internationally, nationally or locally, the SEO effort required will be very much different, since the number of people and businesses you need to reach will differ, obviously, because they're much larger or smaller target markets. So the service level that you require is very important as well. So if you want to contact us every day and ask us questions for an hour, obviously you're going to pay more. Having a dedicated account manager, if you want to touch base daily with those daily touch points, then we've got to think in terms of profitability as well. The cost will be much higher if you prefer to take a back seat or a more passive role in the SEO campaigns. And that's the other thing. We need sign off for content. We need sign off for ideas. We need you to answer our questions. We need communication, and we need timely communication as well. Because if we're creating some content which is based on something that's newsworthy, that's happening in your industry, and it needs to go out next Wednesday, we need sign off at least a couple of days before, or at least a few hours before, to make sure that we can hit that deadline. So we can't have it signed off a week later, because then that's old news. So that's the other thing. So we're always looking for, have we got a clear path of communication with a client? Have we maybe got at least one person dedicated to that campaign where we can speak to them when we need to, if something comes up, if there's something that we need to change and get not only buy-in for, but a decision made. So once we've established all that, we can put a quote together. There may be some other questions. Each client's different. Each business is different. But generally, that kind of thing is enough for us to put a quote together. And at that point, depending on the answers to the questions, we may disqualify that prospect or that client, say, look, I'm sorry. The conversation usually goes like this: look, I'm sorry, I don't think we're a good fit for this project, but maybe you may want to look at this, or maybe look at this other, might recommend a company who's more fit for that niche, for example. So yeah, because we've got an ideal client who we like to work with as well. So we've got those personas, those avatars. So let's dive into SEO pricing models once we've established those criteria. We know the type of client that we're working with, and the area, the niche that they're working within. So SEO price packages generally fall into one of the following categories, and I'll summarize them. Then I'll deep dive into each one of them. So you've got hourly SEO rates, and you've got project-based SEO, upfront fee, then monthly retainer. You've got payment on results SEO, website rental model, been quite popular in recent years, or a combination of these. And hourly SEO rates, you could interchange that with day rate. So the thing is, I'm not a massive believer in these hourly rates. So I think the thing is that I think day rates are good, but hourly rates can be, a dangerous trap to fall into, as an SEO consultant. And because the thing is, when it comes down to comparison, you might have kind of a newbie SEO consultant, maybe a rogue who's charging less to make sure that undercut everybody, and client or prospective client might look at them and say, oh, they're only charging £40 an hour, and then you've got an SEO consultant there, 100, 150, 200, whatever it is, per hour, and you're saying, oh, right, the 40 an hour one, oh, right, I'm gonna be able to. That's gonna be a lot more cost effective. But the guy who does it, or the person, or who does it at 100 an hour, can they get more done in that time? And is it the same? Is it like for like? So if you're comparing apples with oranges, with these hourly rates, then it can be a dangerous thing. Um, if you're already familiar with SEO, then hiring an SEO professional, contractor, or company on an hourly basis may seem like it makes sense, and it may seem like a way to possibly dip your toe in the water. So it depends. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule with this. I mean, this pricing option is usually utilised when there's an in-house SEO team, and they know exactly what they need from a third-party SEO consultant. Maybe that SEO consultant, SEO trainer, is coming in to train your digital marketing team who aren't so specialised in SEO, and you just need that extra bit of resource, possibly maybe in busy periods, or additional expertise if you don't have it in house, basically. So hourly rates, legitimate way of charging, nothing wrong with that. Day rates, also fine. Project-based SEO pricing model might be a bit less risk on your part, possibly. So you've got, when you're hiring an SEO consultant or company on a project by project basis, and remember that a project must have a start and end date, and at some point you either start a new project, or you've got to embed it into business as usual, so BAU. So it can make sense if you have a set budget, but make sure that you don't, all your efforts don't just become SEO efforts don't become just a drop in the ocean. So what's good about project-based SEO, and you could probably work out an hourly or day rate from that, is that you can have a specific set of tasks that you need doing, and then you can have that it price for that project. Now the good thing is, and you'll find this with most, if not all, or many suppliers maybe, is the more you buy, it's almost like buying in bulk, where you can get a discount, so you can add value. And that's really the value of the next one that's coming up, which is the upfront fee and monthly retainer. So ongoing SEO monthly retainers. I know that some business owners, and it always surprised me, they think, oh, I don't want to go on a retainer because I'm paying every month then. but you can really just add value, and that's Internet Marketing Platinum's preferred option to do a have a client on a monthly retainer, so it's better for the client, so they know they've got us, with a service level agreement pretty much on hand to help them, and we can add value. Now, and when it's if we're charging more hourly or day rate, it's more like one-off tasks, and it's very difficult to add value if you don't know where you are from month to month with a client. So you're better off planning ahead. We can add more value if you are on a monthly retainer. I know that the perception of monthly retainers sometimes can be, oh, I don't want that money going out. But remember, it's not like a uh, it's not a consumer subscription. You're a business. You should be thinking in terms of what we said at the very start. SEO should be seen as an investment, not a cost. So you should be getting a return on investment on that monthly retainer, your outlays on that retainer. So, and there's a cumulative effect. There's a compound effect when SEO is done right. So, um, project-based SEO, very very good if you know if we can establish exactly what needs doing initially. It's good for technical SEO amends. So, for example, you've got 20 pages, technical SEO changes need doing. Maybe on the reports it's showing 70% out of 100. We want to bump that up as much as possible, and then we want to establish a way forward for extra content so you don't make the same mistakes again, or your team or your web developers or web designers don't make, or implementing new pages don't make the same mistakes again. So, yeah, moving on to upfront fee with monthly retainer. This is our preferred model. This is the most popular pricing model actually, that we've used over the years because you've got an initial few months or few weeks worth of setup. Technical SEO is established and complete, and we set a way forward with that with the rest of the site for new content. You can build landing pages. Content audit takes place, and we start to create some new content over the first few weeks or months. Depending on the budget, the higher the budget, the more we can get done in the amount of time. This all comes back to your goals and vision for the company. We can concentrate on driving targeted traffic to clients' websites in this way much more effectively because we can plan months in advance exactly what we're going to do. If we're going to, obviously, you can do that with project as well if you've got a start and finish date. But the fact is that marketing is a constant effort because as you start to take market share, your competitors are going to pull back, and they're gonna want to take it back basically, and they're going to up their efforts. That's what usually a lot of the time happens. So it's a constant battle, really. So monthly retainer is better than project based because, as I said, project based is the time and a finish. Yeah, we can you can hire us to come into your organisation if you've got the staff who we can train. Then we can train, embed that into your organisation as business as usual. That's one option, project based. But most of the time, a lot of organisations we work with, they don't tend to have a necessarily dedicated team. They might have a digital marketing member of staff, but they're more generalist, and they're maybe not going to be able to fit in what we teach with the day job as well. So it does depend on the client and the size of the organisation and the infrastructure and the staff. So yeah, the monthly retainer model is very much about developing that ongoing relationship, becoming that business partner really. So you're outsourcing. You almost got an outsourced SEO team at your disposal really to fight the good fight against your competitors in gaining market share in search engines. So the more we work with you, the more we get to know your business over time. We're advocate of your business, and you're outsourcing your SEO to us essentially. from a client's perspective, clients do prefer this to project-based pricing in our experience, because, like I said, you're getting added value. We can plan ahead, and you can't really do that when you're more on an hourly and just task based. Um, Now, on the other hand, if your SEO has been charging you for years but your results haven't changed or becoming worse, then something is wrong. It's a bit of a red flag, and you know you need to do something about that. And it may be maybe something that we're able to fix. We've had lots of clients who have used SEO companies or so-called SEO companies or rogues in the past, where they just get clients on retainers and they don't really do much, and that's a real issue. And that really pains us to hear and see about that. So um, you certainly won't get that with us. So next is payment on results. This is a model that we avoid, because it's very much a dangerous game to play in my opinion. So yeah, payment on results. It's not something that we touch. It all comes back to if so SEO should be seen as an investment, not a cost. And yeah, if it sounds like a business owner, decision maker, business doesn't want to invest in SEO, then it's really a big red flag, really. So yeah, we're looking for clients with a particular mindset where they'll put the money where the mouth is. It's their business at the end of the day. We're a partner. We're the provider. We're adding value to the client, and it's not we're not going to do work and then potentially not get paid for it, because there's a number of risks, and we're not able to mitigate against those risks as well. So this pricing model tends to be charged kind of dynamically, since some keywords or search phrases are more competitive than others. So I've seen kind of the charge per keyword when it gets to a certain position, but rankings are fluid anyway, and you can recruit or rank for other keywords as a result of going for one or two initial keywords anyway. So you'll tend to find that a website that ranks really well will rank really well across the board. So whatever somebody types in, they'll rank up pretty well for those permutations of keywords and search phrases anyway. So I think it's a bit of a messy game, the payments on results SEO, and it's a big red flag if a client says, "Oh, can you do a payment on result?" I will pay you when you get results. Now, it leads me on to the kind of next model, which is website rental model, which, to be honest with, if a client wanted payment on results, we'd probably just refer him to this website rental model, which then we'd retain the ownership of the website, but they're not building their brand. So uh, it depends what their goals are, really. So yeah, we've seen some SEOs quoting prices like such and such a figure once you achieve position one in Google for insurance quotes. The results were not achieved, and the client was inevitably disappointed, and we've heard these kind of stories. It's a lose-lose scenario. Basically, the client never gets what they need because they never really bought in the first place, and they weren't really investing in it. So if you don't invest in something, you're not going to communicate with the SEO consultant anyway. They're not going to really, you know, take it seriously or dedicate time to it. So it never really works in that regard. They won't sign off content generally. So I think it's a lose-lose situation, the pay on results SEO model. Maybe it works for some consultants and businesses, but it's not something that we're interested in. But yeah, I think it's a dangerous model. It can be a dangerous model for both parties. I'm not saying it'd always be the case, but for both client and SEO company. For example, one of the risks would be a client goes out of business. what's the SEO going to do then? When at least if they've done the website rental model, they've built up a generic website and then sold the leads to the client. But if you build up, I don't know, Joe Bloggs' carpentry business, and then Joe Bloggs goes out of business, then you built up that brand with SEO, and then you've seen results, and it's got to the point of paying you. He's gone out of business or decided he wants to, you know, bake cakes for a living instead. Then you're not going to see a return on it. So I always thought that the 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 risk was too heavily weighted on the SEO consultant or agency for that kind of model to work properly. But maybe it's worked for some people. On the other hand, if the SEO doesn't achieve the required results, then the expectations are crushed in terms of timescales of achieving results. If they've been unrealistic, this is where you get into rogue territory. Then the relationship can be equally soured as well. So in that case, the client would have missed out. They were willing to pay the money. So yeah, the payment on results SEO, not one that we touch. Website rental model though, that's an interesting one. Interesting pricing structure which involves SEO companies creating and ranking websites for the purpose of renting them out. Um, Usually on a monthly basis. Once the website is well established, usually quite a generically named website, so it might be, just to go with the carpenter's example, uh, not the music group, the actual profession, the trade. Carpenters in Wakefield, dot whatever the top level domain extension is, and then at least if you can rent, you've got a big audience to rent that out to, so you can rent it out to anybody who needs the lease from that business. The disadvantage from the client's point of view is though a brand's not really built with that. Well, I suppose you could put the client's logo on it and change it to everything, but which is reflecting the client's brand. But I always think it's better for the client to actually just to have their own site really. So rather than renting a website. I've seen it work really well where clients got their own site and they also rent these other sites as well, and they end up with, I don't know, 5 to 20 sites, all speaking quite differently. One's blue, one's red, and they're all quite different sites, and that's quite a decent strategy. On the other hand, sometimes it's better just to put all your efforts into one website as well. So yeah, I've seen a lot of businesses do really well with multiple websites. Certainly the big brands do that, but they've got the resource to do it. So it really does depend on your budget, really, about how many websites you're going to have. So yeah, website rental model to summarize, can be a good alternative to waiting for organic SEO results from a small business owner point of view. So you can just go and rent out a website. You don't have to wait for SEO. It's debatable about whether it's less expensive pay per click. It certainly can be. But yeah, if a business is already renting the web property that you'd like, then you might have to go on the waiting list as well. So you've got to have some kind of exclusivity, i.e., trade or business type in location. You can't, you'd have a conflict as an SEO company to rent two. You only have to rent, only be able to rent one per area. So that leads us on to a combination. Sometimes SEO quotes can involve having both project based, maybe to get that started, or maybe upfront fee. Maybe your project is your upfront fee, just which might just actually not be a project, but just a set of tasks. Just to do some remedial action, i.e., come up with digital marketing strategy. Come up if that's the scope of the project. Come up with SEO plan, competitor research, keyword research, technical SEO, and so on and so forth. Content plan. So yeah, you could combine a website rental model with upfront fee and monthly retainer. So you could work on client site and rent them some sites in the meantime So traditionally it was you could do pay per click, so Google Ads, for example, while the organic SEO were getting going, and then you could keep both running if they're both getting a good return. Um, because that organic SEO can take a while to get going, depending on again the site, the competition, the niche, etc. But yeah, I suppose as an SEO consultant or SEO agency, if you had a few of these rental model websites ready to go, so you could have a nice flow of targeted traffic from day one, whilst you're working on the organic SEO, that I suppose that could work. So yeah, SEO quotes usually include a mixture or combination, quite flexible, quite bespoke. And then we're going to go on to SEO price ranges, and then we'll have a few just kind of FAQs at the end, really. So SEO price ranges, the cheap £50 to £350 a month kind of range, cheap or cost effective, I suppose. But is it cost effective? Is the return on investment? So that's where we're going with cheap for that. So that's right. I mean, there were a client we created a website for about 12 years ago now, where they said they were paying about £30. I think it was about 2010, 2011. Paying about £30 to a SEO consultant per month, but they couldn't tell us what for. We actually contacted the SEO consultant because they hosted the website as well. We were doing as I said, we were creating the website. And we said, what they're doing. They said, we're just doing a few meta tags for them. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. Is it getting results though? Well, we couldn't. I don't think they could sell more of a service to them really. So I don't know. £30 a month for SEO is ridiculous. So all you can expect is do some technical SEO for that. But it's not an holistic approach, is it? It's not SEO. So yeah, we asked what they were doing. They were doing a few meta tags, but for £30 a month, don't expect fantastic results. You get what you pay for. At Internet Marketing Platinum, we're all about transparency, and we need to tell you exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it. So everything is crystal clear. Accountability, transparency, big thing for us. You're probably not going to get a great return on investment for a few hours worth of work by your SEO on your website if your competition's high, which is the case in a lot of circumstances these days. So maybe £50 could be stretched to one article at a real push. I mean, it must be a short article for that, and it's not even worth getting started a lot of time. So again, it comes back to that economies of scale, where you need to pay a fair chunk to get a return on it. I mean, if you're just paying £50 a month, which is £600 a year for SEO, what do you expect? It's going to be a drop in the ocean, and it's up to the SEO company to manage your expectations as well, and perhaps not take that money in the first place just because that's what's offered by you. What's your budget? £50. We can't do anything then. Sorry, it's a drop in the ocean, and walk away, disqualify you. Sounds harsh, but you've got to be realistic, or it's going to be lose-lose. So you're going to cancel your £50 a month because it's not going to work, and then SEO company's going to get a bad reputation. You're not going to get the traffic you wanted. It would have been better to say, look, it's this much based on this and this and this, and yeah. So SEO is as much of a science as an art. We've got lots of stats. There's lots of research we can do, and we can use rule of thumbs, heuristics, and all that kind of good stuff to make decisions and judgment calls to say, look, this is what you should be doing. But at the end of the day, there is a third party at play, Google, other search engines, who are going to have a say in if your website ranks or not. So there are variables which are outside our control. So it's about putting our best foot forward and explaining and consulting with you so you understand the risks, you understand what you're getting for your money, and you understand that, yeah, we can make assurances that the content is going to be high quality, that the technical SEO is going to be good and robust, but there aren't guarantees on positions because nobody can give you guarantees on positions. So yeah, SEO effort that is required, or shall I say the degree or amount of SEO effort that is required and I've alluded to this earlier in this piece of content, is determined largely by the strength of the competition, i.e. the effort that competitors have already put in to get to where they are, but also the effort that they're putting in the future. So the competitors might have spent a good 2 years building content and got the technical SEO pretty good and the URL structures, good enough, or they might have done nothing. So if you're in a niche where your competitors tend to be using more traditional marketing still and they've got adopted digital marketing methods and SEO, then you might be okay. To put in less effort, but you've also got to think what's going to happen in future as well. As you take market share, which I hope you would do from SEO, competitors are gonna want that back. So and they might hire somebody like us to take that back. So always remember, that you're better off starting earlier rather than later in terms of SEO, and you've got to keep up the effort and know why you're doing it. So that is your price range of 30 to 350. For 350, you might get some local SEO at a push, depending on your competition. But I'd say your local SEO starts at about 350 a month to 1,000 a month, depending on your competition. Remember, £1,000 a month is still only 12 grand a year. It's not even half for a decent member of staff a lot of the time. So, if you're wanting somebody who's a real expert in their field, or a collection of people, so you are in a SEO company with different disciplines, content, technical SEO, backlink building, outreach, then 12 grand a year for that, if you're going to get a return on that, isn't that bad. So this is the go-to price bracket when we offer local SEO services. As we know, we will most likely be able to deliver a good return on investment, ROI, tend to be around the kind of 700, 750 for a lot of businesses when we've researched the niche. Some of the niches a lot of the niches we know really well anyway, so we can kind of give a good ballpark estimate off the bat, just on a conversation with a client, and say, look, this is what such and such in Wakefield type of business would, the range that they'd be paying, and these are the kind of results and all that kind of thing. So a big part of SEO success involves getting clients involved in the process, is what I find. Even getting them trained up to an extent, at least so they can understand the reports and the metrics. They've got to be able to go on the journey, because when we've asked some clients in the past, what's your average cost per acquisition for a new client or customer, questions like that, they really need to be able to understand those metrics, so that they know if they're getting a good return on investment, if they're happy spending more money really to get the results. It's not something you can really just do without that. So yeah, a big part of SEO success involves involving clients. This means that clients need to sign off content to go live in a timely manner, provide access to web assets that are needed. So that's content, that's written content, video content, storyboards for video, infographics, Instagram posts. So making the whole process a fluid and enjoyable one is one of our aims for all stakeholders involved. We want it to be a win-win. There's nothing more frustrating for us than a client being unresponsive to emails and just having other priorities. It's very demoralising. We've had to sack clients in the past for that. Even clients who've been paying, especially clients who've been paying, decent chunks per month. Content is key. So if we can't get the sign off, then it's a real problem. Need to make time for the SEO consultants. Local businesses selling products and services locally should expect to pay around about 500 to £1,000 a month, depending on the niche, strength of competition. So let's say you're a local baker and you do deliveries. You know, what return on investment are you going to get if you're spending a grand a month or 12 grand a year? You know, can you how much reach is that going to give you? How much is that going to build up your credibility? And just when somebody types in Google, you'll be potentially appearing higher. So yeah, the 350 to 500 budget range may not be sufficient a budget for many local businesses, especially these days. It's becoming more competitive, and obviously these prices will change with inflation over time as well. Now we'll get on to the 1 grand to 5 grand per month. This is £1,000 to £5,000, Great British pounds. This pricing level is generally for local SEO in a highly competitive area or niche, or for businesses who need to reach a wider target market for low to moderate competition strength keywords and search phrases, e.g., if they need national reach. So for national SEO, you're into that realm of 1 to 5k. Remember that I've said it for this third time, is it? I've said it. £1,000 a month is still only 12 grand a year. What else can you get for that in business? A part-time wage, even if you hired a junior practitioner in your business, who you'd have to train up and you have to spend your time. And this excludes any costs associated with carrying out the SEO work. The SEO software that we pay for as a company, um, it's all built into the price. The monitoring software, the research software, the keyword report tools. So you probably guessed by now that the amount of SEO effort required is largely determined by the strength of competition. I've said it a few times. And we're always looking for kind of those keywords which have got enough volume to make them worth going for. But you know, with lower competition, which are almost like untapped niches if possible, it's not always easy to do though. There will be certain points where we speak to a prospect and we say, look, what's your budget? Oh, it's this much. And we say, well, your competition's all high. There's no untapped niches. We can't help you. Go and do something else in terms of marketing. And those are conversations that we have because we're honest. Just bear in mind that lots of SEO people, companies, consultants may not be as honest. So just guard yourself with that. So next one, we've got two more to go. We've got 5 to 10 grand a month, UK pounds again, and then 10 grand plus a month. So 5 to 10 grand a month. So 5 to 10 grand a month is 60 grand to 100 grand a year. No, it's not. It's 60 grand to 120 grand a year. So 5 grand a month, 60 grand a year, 10 grand a month is 120 grand a year. This pricing bracket covers many average SEO campaigns. Yeah. So let's say your business is multi-site. Most national companies, this will be relevant for. Even global SEO, sometimes at this price range, it's sometimes feasible. Can be out of the price range of a lot of global, international, for example. It's a lot of the time though. So yeah, so we're talking e-commerce sites a lot of the time. National, those businesses with national or international presence. The number of keywords and search phrases involved in this type of campaign is usually relatively high. A few hundred at least that we're actually actively targeting. The strength of competition is usually medium to high. The websites involved are usually highly developed. They've already got traffic. We're doing a lot of CRO, conversion rate optimization, possibly custom built rather than off-the-shelf content management systems, CMSs like WordPress. A lot of them are WordPress, which is a fantastic platform. And there's a substantial outreach to national industry publications, press, and leveraging real-world relationships to build inbound links, usually required for this type of SEO campaign. So that's your 5 to 10 grand a month. and then your 10 grand plus a month. Campaigns at this level, usually enterprise, or again highly competitive in terms of the keywords that they're going for. Usually established. Sectors involved are usually there might be things like flights, massively competitive, cheap flights, solicitors, insurance. So we're talking about, you know, solicitors with national presence. And at this level, organic search engine optimization would almost always be paired with search engine marketing, so SEM, your pay-per-click Google Ads campaigns, Facebook, LinkedIn ads, and so on. So that's kind of, obviously each business is different. Quick caveat there. So take these SEO price ranges with a pinch of salt. It doesn't mean that because you're a local business you might not be paying more or less, or yeah, it really does depend how established your website is and various other factors as we've discussed. So yeah, a quick bit of FAQ. Lots of people, you'll hear all this stuff like SEO is dead and does SEO work anymore and all that kind of thing. Isn't it just you're trying to fool Google and I've tried it once, never again, and all that kind of stuff. I will say that SEO definitely does work if it's done well. Good content has always been a key factor to successful SEO strategies. Quick wins are usually, or sometimes even, available, in SEO, so it doesn't have to be that long. Obviously, it is a long-term strategy, but you can have some quick wins. For example, you usually won't have many. You won't have many or any quick wins if it's a brand new startup, because you'd be sandboxed in Google. But generally, if we've got a website, they've already got an established presence, they've got keyword positions. A lot of the time we can do something to, let's say we check your Google Search Console, you've got a keyword that's coming up in Google and you only get in, I don't know, 0.2% conversion. So from the search engine results pages, somebody's clicking only, a small percentage of the time. Just changing that meta description can increase that, or change that title can increase that that conversion, that click through rate, that CTR, click through rate from Google, for example, is one example. So we can have quick wins like that, but they're usually for established sites. Any good SEO can get a client quick wins in that. Is that SEO though, or is that conversion rate optimization? Is it that discipline? There's lots of different disciplines within the realm of digital marketing, so it's very much relevant though. It's very much needed for SEO. So yeah, it's very much alive. So that's one of the things that we get asked a lot. And yeah, so that's really important. If you have tried SEO before and never again, then there's usually a few reasons. And I'm not only just going to blame bad SEO. I'm gonna say, look, were you receptive to the idea? Did you give it time? Was the SEO actually trying? Were they an expert, and did you follow what they said? And maybe they didn't get you to buy into it. Maybe that's their fault. Maybe there's, the blame might be with both parties. But yeah, it's a strange one, SEO. It's certainly very heavily driven with content marketing if you're doing it right, in my opinion. It's not just technical SEO, certainly not. Link building needs, or at least link building, link outreach is certainly involved. You've got to make sure that your content is getting out there. But yeah, again, if you aren't getting input and sign off from a client as an SEO, and it goes on for months and months, you need to fire that client at the end of the day. So that's advice for SEO consultants. It seems like a counterproductive thing to do, but you don't want that dragging you down in business. A client who's not coming along with the journey, it's not going to be good for either party. So you're better off nipping that in the bud. Business SEO relationship only works if the client and SEO work together. Waiting until January for some Christmas-related content is not going to cut it and can damage your SEO campaign. Very frustrating to create content and then not have it signed off. All in all, if you had a bad SEO experience, then rest assured that SEO does work. But it depends, again, I've said it a few times, on the strength of the competition. You've got to put enough effort in and keep the effort up. You can't go into it blindly. It's not a hit and hope kind of strategy. You've got to plan it. You've got to strategize. And you've got to really commit to turning your website into a money-making machine. So that's the end of this one. And look forward to the next one.